Hello, everybody. My name is Patricia Green. I'm 35 years old. And last Christmas, my father stood at the head of our family's long oak table, raised his glass, and announced that the best gift he could receive was for me to disappear from the Green family forever. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that within 24 hours, an entire ballroom of medical elites would watch his legacy collapse while mine rose above everything he'd ever tried to diminish. Every cruelty, every dismissal, every whispered insult he'd ever thrown at me would come back to him in a way he could never have imagined. Before we go any further, if you've ever been underestimated by the very people who should have lifted you up, tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to share isn't just a story about success, it's a story about finally realizing your worth when the world closest to you refuses to see it. I grew up inside a medical dynasty. The Green name carried weight in Seattle. 3 generations of surgeons, professors, pioneers. My grandfather invented cardiac techniques now taught in textbooks. My father, Dr. Samuel Green, ruled the surgical department at Seattle Grace Medical Center with an iron ego polished by decades of praise. My older brother, Nathan, followed his footsteps perfectly, the golden son completing his neurosurgery residency with applause echoing through every holiday dinner. And then there was me, the daughter who chose computer science over scalpels, the disappointment, the anomaly, the Green who didn't belong. Every Sunday night, the family gathered at our Laurelhurst estate, the same estate I secretly funded for years. I remember sitting at that long table while the chandelier I paid for glimmered above us, listening to Nathan recount surgical victories while my father nodded with regal approval. When it was my turn, he always found a way to shrink me down. "Patricia plays with computers," he'd say, waving a dismissive hand. "Not exactly saving lives." And everyone would laugh, quietly, politely, cruelly. What they never acknowledged, not once, was that for 8 years I had been silently paying the $4,800 monthly utilities, the property taxes, the HOA fees, and 11 times when my father strategically delayed his mortgage, I stepped in. I was the co-signer, the safety net, the reason that mansion still stood. $400 $500,000. $500,000 reasons they should have at least treated me with basic respect. Yet to them, my contributions were invisible. My father called it the least you could do. Still, I endured it. For years. I told myself that maybe one day they'd see my work mattered. That maybe one day, when the world understood the power of artificial intelligence in medicine, they would finally accept me. But I stopped believing that the night the annual family Christmas card arrived at my apartment. A perfect photograph on the mansion's staircase. My father in his white coat, my mother in pearls, Nathan in scrubs, the Green medical dynasty, and my place? Erased, cropping by exclusion. When I called my mother, she sighed softly. "Your father thought the photo looked more balanced without you, aesthetically speaking." Balanced. As if I ruined the picture simply by existing. I set the card next to my laptop, on the same desk where an unread email waited. The subject line was simple. Confidential Executive Position Discussion. Technova. Even now I remember my hands trembling as I clicked it open. The CEO of Technova, James Whitaker, had written personally. He wanted to discuss their Chief Technology Officer role. A position that came with a base salary of $450,000 and equity valued at $164 million. But the part that made my breath catch wasn't the money. It was the line that changed everything. "Your AI platform selection for the Geneva Gold Medal confirms what we've suspected." The Geneva Gold Medal. The most prestigious award in medical innovation. The award my father had chased and been rejected from 8 times. And I, the daughter who played with computers, had won it. I stared at that email for a long time, wondering how the world could honor me so loudly, while my own family worked so tirelessly to silence me. But I didn't tell them. Not yet. I needed time. I needed clarity. I needed to find the courage to speak truths I'd buried for years. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my father. Don't forget dinner on the 23rd. Extended family attending. Dress appropriately and have something interesting to contribute for once. Something interesting to contribute. As if winning the most prestigious innovation award in the world wouldn't qualify. As if saving lives with technology wasn't real medicine. The next day, a second email from Technova arrived, marked urgent. Attached were the official offer details and a note. We will announce your appointment publicly at the Seattle Grace Christmas Gala on December 24th, the same gala where my father would be delivering the keynote about 3 generations of medical excellence. The irony tasted sharp. But before the gala came the Green family Christmas dinner, December 23rd. The night everything truly snapped. The night he told me to disappear. The night he thought he shattered me. He had no idea he was lighting the fuse that would burn down everything he believed untouchable. That night is where my story begins. The morning of December 23rd felt colder than it should have. Not the weather. Seattle winters were always sharp and gray. But the heaviness in my chest as I got ready for the Green family Christmas dinner. I stood in front of my closet for too long, fingers trailing over fabrics that, no matter how elegant, would still be judged. In the end, I chose a simple burgundy dress and a black coat. Nothing extravagant. Nothing they could accuse me of showing off. Even after everything, the instinct to minimize myself around them was still there, deeply wired, like an old childhood scar. I drove toward Laurelhurst Estate, with a bottle of Cabernet I knew they would critique anyway. The lights from the mansion glowed warm through the frosted windows, the kind of picture-perfect holiday scene my family loved presenting to the world. It was strange walking up that driveway, knowing I had paid for the heated pavement beneath my feet, the manicured hedges to my right, the soft golden lights around the eaves. All details they admired, all details funded by a daughter they dismissed. When I stepped into the foyer, conversations quieted, then resumed in a rehearsed, polite way. The familiar tension wrapped around me like a heavy shawl. "Patricia, darling," my Aunt Marjorie said, air-kissing my cheek. "Still working with computers?" "Still saving lives with them," I replied softly. Thomas, her husband, laughed. "She thinks computers save lives. Where does she get these ideas?" "From her mother's side, clearly," my father added from across the room, earning a round of chuckles. This was the rhythm. Their rhythm. Every year, every holiday, every gathering, it was always the same. Praise for Nathan's latest surgical triumph. Admiration for my father's decades of expertise. Compliments for my mother's pearl brooch, the house decor, the catered hors d'oeuvres. And me, politely sidelined, tolerated, a footnote at best. The dining room glittered with framed medical degrees lining the walls. Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Stanford. Certificates polished like trophies. My MIT diploma was nowhere among them. Never had been. Dinner began with toasts about legacy and tradition. My grandmother Evelyn nodded proudly as Nathan recounted a complex neurosurgery he'd assisted with. My father beamed at him, every inch the proud patriarch of a continuing dynasty. Then the attention shifted to me. Nathan leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. "Still renting that cramped apartment, Patricia?" "At your age, I already owned my first condo." Before I could respond, my father cut in. "Well, if she had chosen real medicine instead of keyboard hobbies, she'd be making something of herself." A ripple of pity-laced amusement fluttered around the table. I swallowed, steadying my voice. "I've been busy paying for this house." The room froze. Forks stopped mid-air. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. My father scoffed. "Contributing to utilities isn't paying for the house." "Utilities, property taxes, HOA fees," I clarified. "And the mortgage payments you forgot. 11 of them," Nathan snorted. "You think paying a few bills makes you special?" $500,000, I said. Calm, measured. $500 and $400 to be exact, over 8 years. Aunt Marjorie laughed sharply. Oh, don't exaggerate, dear. So I pulled out my phone, the spreadsheet I'd kept meticulously updated. Every payment, every confirmation number, every date. I turned the screen toward my father, watching color drain from his face. You call it exaggeration, I said. The bank calls it delinquency. Nathan slammed his wineglass down. Always needing attention, always the victim. Mom finally spoke. Patricia, sweetheart, this isn't the time. It is, I said. It's exactly the time. That was when my father pushed back his chair, standing with the confidence of a man who had controlled every narrative his entire life. He tapped his wineglass lightly, commanding silence. Enough, he said. Patricia thinks she can buy her way into this family, that she can purchase respect. His gaze locked onto mine, stern and cold. The best Christmas gift you could give us is to disappear from this family entirely. Stop embarrassing us. Stop showing up at hospital events. Just stop. My breath left my body like someone had punched straight through my chest. 18 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, my grandmother, my mother, my brother. Not one defended me. Nathan actually laughed. Finally, someone said it. I placed my napkin beside my untouched plate. My hands didn't shake. Not this time. Something deeper than sadness moved through me. Clarity. Quiet and sharp. You want me gone? I asked. The best gift, my father repeated. Merry Christmas, then. I walked out of the dining room, down the hallway I'd walked 1,000 times, past the heated marble floor I paid for. I set my house keys on the entry table, the same table that held years of Christmas cards I'd never been invited into. Behind me, someone began to clap. A few more joined in. Soft, mocking applause as I stepped outside into the cold. In my car, my phone buzzed. A new message from James Whitaker. Hoping for good news tomorrow. The medical world needs revolutionaries, not dynasties. My fingers hovered for a moment before I typed back. I'll take the position. And as I looked back at the mansion glowing behind me, the one I kept alive for 8 years, I realized something. They hadn't just pushed me out. They'd freed me. What none of them understood was simple. Tomorrow night, on Christmas Eve, my father would stand in front of 500 people and watch the one daughter he disowned become the woman he could never stop. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex that night, the sky above Seattle had turned the kind of deep winter blue that felt almost unreal, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to shift. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands still on the wheel, replaying every second of that dinner. Every insult, every silence, every pair of eyes that chose not to defend me. And my father's final words hung there like frost in the air. The best Christmas gift would be if you disappeared. He meant it. They all did. And for the first time in my life, I believed them. Inside my apartment, the lights flickered on automatically, warm and quiet. Nothing like Laurelhurst Estate with its curated elegance and suffocating pride. I kicked off my heels, hung up my coat, and walked straight to my desk. My laptop still glowed softly from earlier. The email from TechNova opened like an invitation to a different future. I clicked the video call icon under James Whitaker's contact. He answered on the third ring, his voice calm but instantly alert. Patricia, it's late. Is everything all right? I didn't bother easing into it. I'll take the CTO position. He exhaled slowly, relief woven into his tone. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. But your voice... Patricia, what happened? I hesitated. The truth sat heavy on my tongue. My father told me to disappear from the family tonight, in front of 18 people. Silence. But not the uncomfortable kind. More like the silence of someone calculating the weight of something they instantly understood. Then, you don't deserve that, and tomorrow we'll make sure he never speaks to you that way again. I leaned back in my chair. Before I say yes completely, I need to know something. Tomorrow's announcement. My father will be there, at the gala, front row. He's being considered for the hospital director position. James paused. Is that a problem? No. I shook my head. It's perfect. There was another beat of silence, then a low, almost knowing laugh. Patricia, tell me more about what happened tonight. My family made it very clear I don't belong with them, I said. So tomorrow, I want to show them exactly where I do belong. He understood instantly. Then we'll time the announcement right after his keynote. And just like that, the stage was set. When the call ended, I opened the DocuSign contract Technova had emailed hours earlier. It felt surreal. My name printed next to a title that represented everything I'd spent my adult life building toward. Chief Technology Officer, Technova Corporation, Equity, Executive Authority, a platform that had already saved lives. My father would hate every part of it. The final attachment in the email caught my eye. Seattle Grace Donor Hierarchy, 2024. Technova was listed as the primary benefactor. Top line, 50 million pledged. Every piece of equipment my father used, every operating room he walked into, would soon carry the branding of the company I would now help lead. I signed the contract at 11:47 p.m., December 23rd. The moment my fingertip pressed the digital signature, something shifted in me. Like the gravity that had kept me anchored to the Green family finally snapped. The next morning, December 24th, I woke to my phone ringing. Dr. Valerie Kwan, the hospital director. Patricia, she said warmly. I hope I'm not calling too early. James told me the news. Congratulations. Thank you, I replied, still half awake, half disbelieving. I wanted to tell you something before tonight, she continued. I was on the Geneva Selection Committee. My breath caught. I've read every submission your father ever sent, she said. Competent work, but derivative. Yours, she paused. Revolutionary. I sat up straighter in bed. He doesn't know I won. No, she confirmed. He'll find out tonight, along with everyone else. The words felt electric. Patricia, there's more, she added. The 12,000 lives saved during the pilot? That's conservative. My team reviewed the real data. It's closer to 15,000. 15,000. I had built an AI engine that could read everything. X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, blood panels, vital signs, even doctors' handwritten notes, and pieced them together faster than any human team ever could. It caught cancers at stage 0, flagged silent heart attacks days before they struck, and pushed critical alerts straight to emergency physicians' phones within seconds. Every hospital in the pilot relied on it for early detection, rapid triage, and those split-second decisions that separate life from loss. I wasn't just writing code in a dark room. I was giving doctors a second pair of eyes, a second chance, a second timeline, one where patients actually lived. And in the 8 months of implementation, 15,000 lives were reborn. Not luck. Precision. Relentless precision. That number hung in the air, larger than anything my family had ever given me credit for, larger than their legacy, larger than their scorn. You've quadrupled your father's lifetime surgical impact, she said quietly. In 6 months. I didn't know what to say. My father had performed 4,000 successful surgeries over 3 decades. I had surpassed that without ever entering an operating room. This is why I wanted to call, Valerie said. Tonight is about more than recognition. This is about shifting an entire industry, and I want you to know I'll stand behind you. When the call ended, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the quiet hum of my apartment heater. The same heater I paid for, without anyone belittling me for it. I thought about the way my father had told me to disappear, how Nathan laughed, how no one spoke up for me. And yet here, in this quiet moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Validation. Real, undeniable validation from people who mattered because of merit, not bloodline. My phone buzzed again. Mom wrote, "Mom knows you're sad, but tonight is an important night. Please don't make a scene at the gala tonight. Your father's reputation matters." I stared at that message for a long time. Even after everything, she still worried more about him than me. But tonight? Tonight would not be about them. Tonight would be the moment everything they believed about me shattered. Tonight would be my rebirth. By early evening, I slipped into a black dress, simple and elegant, and pinned my MIT alumni pin to my neckline. Outside, the city lights reflected on the wet pavement as I stepped into the chilly December air. Christmas Eve, 7 o'clock p.m. Fairmont Olympic Hotel. The Seattle Grace Christmas Gala. By the time I walked through those grand doors, I was no longer the daughter my family dismissed. I was Technova's new CTO, a Geneva Gold Medal recipient, the woman about to change everything, and the Green family had absolutely no idea what was coming. The Fairmont Olympics Grand Ballroom shimmered with soft gold lighting, crystal chandeliers, and the low hum of Seattle's medical elite mingling over champagne. As I stepped inside, the warmth of the space washed over me, a stark contrast to the cold distance I had felt from my own family just 24 hours earlier. But the moment I handed my coat to the attendant and saw the seating chart, reality snapped into place. Table 1, Technova Corporation. My name was printed there. The primary sponsor table. Direct line of sight to the stage. My father's name sat at table 3 among the VIP medical staff, prominent but nowhere near the level Technova represented tonight. I wondered if he had noticed the placement. I wondered what he would think if he saw where I was seated. "Patricia," I turned as James Whitaker approached, looking every bit the impossibly polished CEO in a charcoal suit. He smiled warmly. "Welcome to the front line of disruption." I exhaled a soft laugh. Disruption feels about right. He leaned in slightly. "Are you ready for what?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. "For the world to see who you really are." Before I could respond, a hostess guided us toward the sponsor table. Every step felt like walking deeper into a spotlight. Conversations paused as I passed. Senior surgeons, department heads, researchers. They all turned to look. Not in disdain, not in mockery, but curiosity. I had never been looked at with curiosity in a medical setting. Not as Patricia Green. Not as the daughter who played with computers. But tonight, my presence alone shifted the air. The table on the other side, my father's posture shifted almost imperceptibly. His smile stalled mid-conversation, hanging awkwardly as his eyes locked onto me, first in confusion, then in something sharper, unease. Nathan, who had been laughing loudly with a group of residents, froze as well. The grin on his face flickered, collapsed, then twisted into a tight, bewildered line. Neither of them expected me to be here, hoping it wasn't me walking alongside Technova executives, not me being led to the sponsorship table. For the first time in my life, I saw a flicker of panic cross their faces. Just a hairline fracture, but enough to feel the shift in the room. Enough to tell me they sensed something was coming, something they couldn't control. I took my seat beside James, smoothing my dress as the waitstaff began placing the first courses on the tables. Across the table, I saw my family, Nathan still trying to look like he was gesturing excitedly as he spoke, my father nodding along. The smugness of a man who still believed the night belonged to him. He had no idea the ground beneath him was already cracking. Dinner passed in a blur of polite conversations and sideways glances from people who clearly wanted to ask why I, a Green not known for medicine, was seated beside Technova's executives. The hum of speculation grew thicker as the room began to settle, lights dimming slightly for the evening's keynote. The MC stepped onto the stage, smiling broadly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the distinguished speaker for tonight's keynote, Dr. Samuel Green, discussing 3 generations of medical excellence." The applause was warm and respectful. My father rose with practiced confidence, straightening his white coat as he walked across the stage. From my position, I could see everything. The pride in his stride, the admiration in the room, The anticipation of the speech he'd undoubtedly rehearsed 100 times. He began with his usual flourish. For 70 years, the green name has stood for healing, dedication, and the sacred calling of medicine. I watched him speak, watched the audience nod along, watched Nathan sit tall as though the legacy applied to him most of all. My father pioneered techniques that are still used today. My son Nathan and I continue this proud lineage, and together we represent the true heart of medicine: human intuition, human innovation, human hands. His tone shifted, subtle but sharp. No machine, no algorithm, no artificial intelligence can replicate what a real physician carries within them. I felt James glance at me from beside the table, but I kept my eyes on my father. This was his kingdom, his arena, his spotlight. He went on. Some people prefer keyboards to scalpels. Less pressure, less responsibility, less impact. A soft wave of uneasy laughter moved through the ballroom. Nathan grinned. My mother looked amused. And across the room, several doctors who relied heavily on AI shifted uncomfortably. My father continued, warming to his theme. We should celebrate those who chose the harder path, medicine, and not those hiding behind screens pretending to contribute. James's posture stiffened, my pulse steadied. I had heard all of this before, that I didn't belong, that my work wasn't real, that I was lesser. But hearing it here, publicly, in front of the very institution my AI had revolutionized, it didn't hurt. Not anymore. It clarified. Just when he reached the end of his speech. Tonight we honor tradition and true medical innovation. Another voice sliced cleanly through the applause. Actually, James Whitaker said, rising to his feet at our table, I think we should honor the innovation that's saving thousands of lives as we speak. A hush fell over the room. My father froze mid-step. James continued, voice steady, intentional, carrying easily across the ballroom. I'd like to share an announcement from Technova Corporation, one that can't wait. Several heads turned, doctors straightened, phones were quietly lowered onto tables. Across the room, Nathan's smirk faltered. My father's shoulders squared defensively. The screens around the ballroom flickered to life, Technova's blue and white logo filling every corner of the room. James walked toward the stage with slow, deliberate steps. A wave of whispers followed him. I inhaled steadily, letting the weight of the moment settle into my bones. Ladies and gentlemen, he said once he reached the podium, standing only feet from my father. Technova's AI diagnostic platform has changed the landscape of modern medicine. It has identified early-stage cancers, predicted cardiac events weeks in advance, and saved thousands of lives. He paused. 15,000 to be precise, verified and documented. The crowd shifted, murmuring. Doctors exchanged looks. Administrators pulled out their phones. My father looked blindsided, eyes flickering between the screens and the man beside him. And tonight, James continued, we are honored to introduce the visionary behind this revolution. My heart slammed once, hard, but my expression stayed calm. James turned to the audience. She is the first non-physician in 40 years to win the Geneva Gold Medal for Medical Innovation. Silence thickened. She is Technova's new Chief Technology Officer. The spotlight swung. It found me at table 1. Every face in the ballroom turned with it. And yes, James said, letting the weight of the moment settle. She is Dr. Samuel Green's daughter, Patricia Green. My breath never shook, not once. This moment wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. I rose from my chair as the applause started, hesitant at first, then building, growing, gaining momentum until it filled the room like thunder rolling across the coast. My father didn't move. He stood at the edge of the stage, staring at me, disbelief carved into every line of his face. And I began walking toward the spotlight, toward the stage, toward the moment my life would split cleanly into before and after. The daughter he wanted to disappear from the family Christmas party is about to become the woman the entire medical field would bow to. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath as I walked toward the stage, each click of my heels echoing through a silence so thick it bordered on reverence. The spotlight followed me, sweeping across tables of men and women who had dismissed me for years. Not because of my work, but because of my last name. And tonight, that same last name was about to become the reason they all looked up. My father stood frozen beside the podium, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. Nathan's expression had shifted from arrogance to something closer to panic. My mother clutched her pearls, eyes wide, as if realizing too late that the daughter she'd allowed to be erased had built something none of them could even comprehend. I stepped onto the stage. James handed me the microphone with a subtle nod, his eyes steady, grounding. The applause softened into a low hush. I faced the crowd, not my family, not my father, but the entire room of professionals who would soon rely on the very platform I had created. "Good evening," I began, my voice carrying easily through the hall. "My name is Patricia Green." A few heads nodded, a few whispers fluttered. Everyone was listening. And yes, I'm the daughter who chose keyboards over scalpels. The one who didn't continue the Green medical legacy. The one who was told that what I did wasn't real medicine. A ripple moved across the room. Unease, recognition, a few sympathetic murmurs. 24 hours ago, I continued, my father told me the best Christmas gift would be if I disappeared from the family. Gasps broke through the audience. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Dr. Valerie Kwan had her phone raised, recording quietly, deliberately. "So tonight," I said, "I'm honoring his wish." I turned toward my father. His face was pale, almost gray. He looked like a man watching his legacy slip through his fingers. "I am disappearing," I said softly. "Not from the family he tried to confine me to, but from the shadow he cast over my name." I clicked the presentation remote. The screens exploded to life behind me. Data charts, graphs, real case numbers from hospitals across the country. "This is the diagnostic platform I built," I said. "The one refined during late nights after paying my family's bills. The one dismissed as a hobby. The one called digital busywork." A slide appeared. Early detection improvements by department. Radiology, plus 34%. Oncology, plus 47%. Emergency, plus 89%. Doctors in the room leaned forward, whispering urgently to one another. "In 6 months," I continued, "this platform helped save 15,000 lives. Not theoretically, not hypothetically, verified, documented." Another slide. Lives saved. 15,237. The ballroom erupted with shocked murmurs. Someone at table 7 whispered, "That's impossible." Another replied, "No, that's incredible." "My father performed 4,000 successful surgeries in 30 years, I said steadily. "This platform saves that many every 7 weeks. The impact of that number hit the room like a dropped stone in water. Ripples of shock, awe, disbelief widening with every breath. That was when my father finally broke. "Before I tell you his next reaction, comment and tell me, if you were the one standing there, instead of me, witnessing your parents' self-esteem shattered in front of hundreds of people, how would you feel?" "This is ridiculous," he snapped into the mic he hadn't turned off, voice cracking sharply. "Medicine is about human connection, not this algorithmic computer nonsense." His words fell flat, defensive rather than authoritative. I met his glare calmly. "The platform doesn't replace doctors. It empowers them. It gives them time, actual time, for human connection." Before he could respond, another voice rose with clear authority. "Dr. Green," said Dr. Valerie Kwan as she stepped onto the stage, "you have repeatedly dismissed your daughter's work as irrelevant. Yet on your director application, you listed yourself as the primary facilitator of Technova's donation." A wave of gasps broke through the audience. Valerie clicked her own slide. Director application excerpt. Family Connections secured Technova partnership. My father's face was completely pale. Valerie's tone was sharp but controlled. You took credit for the very innovation you just announced. He staggered back half a step. And one more thing, she added, turning to the audience. The Geneva Medical Innovation Committee, the one Dr. Green submitted to 8 times, called Patricia's platform the most significant medical advancement since antibiotics. The room exploded. Phones were up everywhere. Doctors were scribbling notes. Administrators whispered urgently into headsets. Reporters repositioned themselves for angles. Nathan suddenly lurched to his feet from table 3, wine glass trembling in his hand. "She's not even a real doctor," he shouted. "She doesn't save lives. She types code." Valerie didn't hesitate. "Mr. Green, your sister's typing has saved more lives this month than you will in your entire career. Sit down." He collapsed back into his chair, face white with humiliation. The power dynamics in the room had visibly shifted. Technova executives watched with quiet satisfaction. Department heads exchanged stunned looks. The room now belonged to me. I raised the mic again, voice steady. "And while I was building this platform," I said, "I was also doing something else." I clicked another slide, financial support log, Patricia Green, rows of payments, dates, confirmation numbers, amounts. "For 8 years," I said, "I covered utilities, taxes, maintenance, and 11 mortgage payments." The total number appeared in large gold text. $500, $400. A collective gasp rolled through the ballroom. My father dismissed this as the least I could do, as if $500,000 were a trivial act, as if my support did not keep their home, our home, standing. My mother's hand clapped over her mouth. Nathan stared, stunned. "And so tonight," I said, "I'm ending that support." A wave of murmurs swept across the room, some shocked, some approving. "I've already notified the mortgage company," I said calmly. "As of January 1st, I am no longer the co-signer." James added quietly from the edge of the stage. "Without Patricia's credit score, the Green mortgage will adjust from 3.9% to 7.5%, calculations whispered across the room. Doctors were quick with numbers. That meant a massive jump in payments. My father staggered. Nathan swore under his breath. My mother looked like her world had cracked open. "And I am canceling the automatic utility payments," I continued. $4,800 a month, effective immediately. The shock was visible. Some people actually clapped, not mockingly, no cruelty, but like they were witnessing justice. I lowered the mic slightly. "This is not revenge," I said softly. "This is boundaries." And the ballroom understood exactly what that meant. As the applause surged, full, thunderous, unrestrained, I realized something with absolute clarity. This was the night the Green dynasty fell, and the night mine began. The applause hadn't even settled before the first camera flash burst across the ballroom. Reporters surged forward like a tide breaking loose, their lenses reflecting the blue glow of the Technova screens, still flashing with metrics of lives saved. The MC tried to restore order, but the room had already shifted into something electric, urgent, historic. I stepped down from the stage, and the moment my heels hit the ballroom floor, microphones thrust toward me. "Ms. Green, how does it feel to outpace your father's lifetime surgical record? Is this the biggest medical breakthrough of the decade? Did your family know you were the architect behind Technova's platform? Will you continue your relationship with the Green family?" Their questions came fast, sharp, overlapping. I answered each one with steady professionalism, never malicious, never petty, but direct and factual. My answers weren't just sound bites, they were boundaries, finally spoken aloud. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father pushing through the crowd, pale and frantic. Nathan trailed behind him, shoulders slumped, eyes unfocused. My mother followed last, her pearl necklace trembling against her collarbone. "Patricia," my father called. His voice cracked. "We need to talk." But his plea barely cut through the reporter's questions. "Ms. Green, can you comment on the financial records Technova displayed? Is it true you covered all household expenses for 11 years? Why didn't your family acknowledge your support? My father finally reached me. Patricia, listen to me. I kept my gaze on the reporter in front of me, not breaking focus. As I stated earlier, the documents speak for themselves. Patricia! My father's voice rose, revealing a desperation I'd never heard from him. This is a misunderstanding. Before I could respond, James stepped in smoothly, placing a firm hand on my father's shoulder. Dr. Green, he said with CEO authority. Ms. Green has interviews scheduled. If you'd like to speak with her, you can contact her assistant after the holidays. Assistant? My father sputtered. Yes, James said. Her assistant. The phrase hit him like a slap. My father looked at me as though expecting me to correct it. I didn't. Instead, I turned to a reporter who asked, Ms. Green, how do you respond to the Green family's statement that your work isn't real medicine? I answered clearly. The platform has saved 15,000 lives. I'm comfortable letting the results define what real medicine is. A chorus of murmurs followed. My father stepped forward again, face contorting between anger and panic. Patricia, enough. We're family. That word, family, felt thinner than paper. I pulled out my phone and opened the family group chat the moment before the family Christmas party. Nathan. Hope she doesn't talk about coding tomorrow. Real accomplishments only. Aunt Marjorie. Your father is right, Patricia. This victim complex is exhausting. 17. Relatives liked this message. The reporter stared at the phone as I said, This is the Christmas conversation my family was having without me. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. My father's shoulders sagged. A woman from the Seattle Times asked gently, Ms. Green, will you be continuing financial support for your parents' home? I didn't hesitate. No. A murmur spread, some shocked, some approving. 11 years of silent financial support while being publicly dismissed, I said. Tonight, I established a boundary. Not vengeance, not punishment, a boundary. My father's face crumpled, not in anger this time, but in fear. You can't do this, he whispered hoarsely. I need that cosign. We can't afford. I lifted my phone again, showing him the Wells Fargo email. Your rate adjustment letter arrives Monday. He swayed. A nearby board member caught his arm. Nathan stumbled forward, eyes glassy. You vindictive. Careful, Valerie Kwan warned sharply. You're speaking to Technova's CTO at a professional event. Nathan faltered, mouth snapping shut. The reporters turned toward him instinctively. Mr. Green, one asked, is it true your promotion is being reviewed due to nepotism concerns? Nathan's face drained white. Before he could speak, Valerie stepped forward, voice crisp and controlled. Seattle Grace upholds strict standards. Any position influenced by family connections will be reassessed. The room reacted instantly, whispers, camera clicks, stunned glances at Nathan. My mother finally reached us, tears streaking her makeup. Patricia, please, she begged, clutching my arm. This isn't us. This isn't who we are. I looked at her, my voice soft but firm. It's exactly who you've been. Her breath broke. The final blow came not from me, but from James. He returned to the stage, microphone in hand. Before we conclude tonight, Technova would like to clarify the leadership structure of the new Medical Innovation Wing. Every table fell silent. Our $50 million donation requires independent oversight, he continued. To prevent resistance to necessary innovation, all AI implementation will bypass traditional departmental channels. He turned toward my father, not unkindly, but unflinchingly. Dr. Green, your department will report directly to the Innovation Committee, led by Ms. Green. The collective gasp was instantaneous. Nathan's jaw dropped. My mother clasped her hands to her face. My father inhaled sharply, as if struggling to breathe. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I simply stood there, grounded, steady, owning the authority I had earned. When the gala officially ended, the ballroom erupted with noise, reporters shouting, guests scrambling to speak to me, board members lining up, cameras flashing like a storm. Every step I took felt like stepping out of the shadow I'd lived in my entire life. My father tried one last time, voice small, brittle. "Patricia, please." I turned to him with quiet clarity. "You told me to disappear," I said. "Tonight I am." I walked away before he could respond, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing a family. I felt like I was finally walking into my life. Christmas Eve ended with the Green dynasty fractured and mine rising from the pieces. The aftermath began right after the hospital gala, which was also the official Christmas Eve. By 6 a.m., my phone was vibrating non-stop. News alerts, article links, trending hashtags. The Green family disaster had already become the medical world's biggest holiday headline. Technova CTO outsaves surgeon father, 15,237 lives and counting. Green dynasty questioned after gala meltdown. Nepotism investigation launched at Seattle Grace. Merit over legacy, trending at number 3 nationwide. By 8 a.m., it had gone global. I sat at my kitchen counter, coffee warming my hands, watching the story unfold with the kind of detached clarity that only comes after years of emotional distance. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt. I felt free, as if the world had finally caught up to a truth I had carried alone for too long. Meanwhile, the Green family, once untouchable, was unraveling. At 9:12 a.m., Nathan's first message arrived. "You ruined my career. Fix this." At 9:14 a.m., "The board wants a hearing. They're saying favoritism. Say something." At 9:20 a.m., "This is your fault, all of it." I didn't respond. By noon, the Seattle Times released their deep dive. Financial records reveal 11 years of silent support from Patricia Green. They had obtained the spreadsheet I forwarded during the gala, every payment documented, every instance I covered a mortgage, every monthly utility transfer. The reporter quoted hospital staff who had witnessed my father boasting about the Technova partnership, implying he had secured it himself. The article concluded with a line that would follow my father for the rest of his career. The Green dynasty was built on reputation. It survived on denial, and it collapsed under the weight of a daughter's truth. At 2 p.m., the hospital board held an emergency meeting. By 5 p.m., the minutes leaked. My father's director application was denied. The official reason? Failure to demonstrate inclusive leadership and unwillingness to adopt life-saving innovation. Unofficially, everyone knew why. That evening, a desperate wave of calls came through from unknown numbers, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all suddenly remembering my existence. "Sweetheart, we always knew you were talented. Can you put in a word for my son at Technova? Family sticks together during hard times. Not a single one had spoken up for me at dinner. Not a single one had defended me the night my father told me to disappear. I archived every message without answering. The next morning, December 26th, the cracks widened. A leaked internal memo revealed that Nathan's attending promotion had been suspended pending review. His performance logs, previously concealed under departmental favoritism, were now under scrutiny. 3 near misses, patient complaints, diagnostic errors, all ignored because of his last name. Now exposed for the entire hospital to see. His voicemail came in at 10:42 a.m., voice shaking with rage and fear. "You've destroyed everything. They're saying Dad pushed my promotion through. You have to tell them it wasn't nepotism. Please." But it was nepotism, and he knew it. I deleted the message. By New Year's Eve, the financial avalanche hit. The mortgage company contacted my parents, informing them of the new rate, 7.5%, effective immediately. An email from their financial advisor, accidentally CC'd to me, detailed the grim reality. Without Patricia's support, monthly obligations will exceed sustainable limits. Recommend downsizing or selling the home within 90 days. Within 90 days. The mansion I held afloat for 11 years was sinking. The social consequences hit next. 3 pharmaceutical companies removed my father from their conference circuits. The university withdrew his guest lectureship. Patient referrals dropped as people requested doctors who used green AI, the irony so sharp it hurt. Even the country club rescinded his membership invitation, citing incomplete financial standing. The green name, once synonymous with prestige, had become a cautionary tale. Meanwhile, my world was expanding. Technova entered partnership negotiations with 3 major research institutions. Invitations poured in, Harvard, Stanford, Cleveland Clinic, requesting keynote appearances. My inbox filled with collaboration requests from scientists I once idolized. But the message that stopped me cold came from a hospital in Montana. Your AI platform detected a stage 0 tumor in my wife. Local doctors missed it. You saved her life. Thank you, Ms. Green. I read it twice. Then again. That was the moment I understood something important. My work didn't just eclipse the green legacy, it transcended it. But the true collapse came in early January. My father tried one last attempt to regain control. He showed up in Technova's lobby without an appointment, demanding to see me. Security footage showed him pacing, arguing, insisting he had a right to see his daughter. My assistant informed him politely, Ms. Green requires scheduled appointments for all visits, even family. He left an envelope instead. 2 pages. Tightly written. No apologies, no responsibility, just, you've made your point, come home and fix this. Signed, your father. Not dad, not love dad, just your father. I drafted a reply on company letterhead. I did not break this. You did. My conditions remain unchanged. I did not send love. I sent truth. The Green family's downfall wasn't sudden. It was precise. One consequence after another, each tied to a choice they'd made long before the gala. Dismiss me, exploit me, erase me, tell me to disappear. And so I did, but not the way they expected. I didn't disappear into silence. I disappeared into power, purpose, and a future they could never touch. The Green dynasty collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. And I walked forward, lighter than I had ever been. The first weeks of January passed with an unfamiliar clarity, as if years of quiet storms had finally lifted. Each morning, I woke to the soft hum of my apartment, sunlight spilling through the windows overlooking Elliott Bay. From here, Seattle Grace looked small, not unimportant, just far enough away that it no longer dictated my life. On January 8th, I stepped into my new corner office at Technova. My name, Patricia Green, Chief Technology Officer, gleamed on the glass door. James Whitaker greeted me with a smile. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. Inside, nearly 200 engineers and researchers worked under my leadership. They decorated the conference room with balloons and a cake reading, to saving lives without a scalpel. The gesture made me laugh, a real, unguarded sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. We're rolling out the platform to 12 more hospitals this week, my engineering director said. Projected impact, 100,000 lives saved by Q2. 100,000. A number my father never could have imagined for his daughter. That afternoon, the World Health Organization finalized a global partnership with us. Your technology will democratize healthcare, the director said. This is the future. A place inside me, tight for so long, finally loosened. But the messages from home didn't stop. 37 missed calls from my father. 23 voicemails from my mother. A single text from Nathan. Hope you're happy. I'm working urgent care in Tacoma. The family group chat, once nonstop bragging, fell silent except for my mother's occasional pleas. Please talk to us. Your father hasn't slept. But they hadn't noticed the damage until the consequences touched them. By February, the hospital board announced their findings. Nathan was formally demoted, back to senior resident with mandatory supervision. My father's referrals dropped, his conference invitations dried up, and his mortgage modification request was denied. Without my cosign, their financial reality buckled instantly. The mansion I'd held afloat for almost a decade was listed quietly for sale. My mother's pearls vanished from her neck, sold or simply too heavy to wear now, I never asked. And I didn't celebrate any of it, not once. These weren't victories, they were truths catching up. I focused on my work, on every patient whose life might change because of an algorithm written in the quiet years when no one believed in me. Then, one afternoon in March, my mother appeared in Technova's lobby. She waited 6 hours, no drama, no demands, just a small woman with a purse in her lap. I finally agreed to meet her in a private room. She looked diminished without her pearls or practiced posture. "I'm sorry," she whispered before I even sat down. Tears spilled freely. "I should have defended you. Not just that night, always." She told me she'd started therapy, told me she was ashamed, told me she wasn't ready to leave my father, but she was ready to stop protecting him. Then she handed me an envelope. I wrote this 100 times, 3 handwritten pages. Genuine accountability. Not enough to erase 8 years, nothing could, but it was real, and real was a beginning. "We can meet once a month," I told her. "Coffee, neutral place, no messages for Dad." She nodded through tears. "I'll take whatever you'll give." I realized then that I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me, for the version of myself who still believed healing was possible when built on truth. By June, 6 months after the gala, the life counter on my office wall ticked upward, 103,147 lives impacted. The platform had reached 127 hospitals in 14 countries. Geneva invited me to deliver the keynote at the next summit. Medicine Beyond Tradition, the Green Revolution. I never used my father's name, but the world knew. Nathan sent one message that month. "Hope you're satisfied." I didn't reply, but my mother and I met for coffee 3 times. Slowly, gently, we began building something new, something honest. In late July, she came again with an envelope. "It's from your father," she said quietly. Inside was a Christmas card. Just 3 words in his familiar handwriting. I was wrong. Not enough to mend everything, but enough to acknowledge the truth he tried so hard to bury. I filed it away, seen, but not savored. Then I returned to my work. Tomorrow, the platform would save another 400 lives. And to me, that mattered more than any family name ever could. Because success isn't revenge. It's choosing yourself, despite the people who doubted you. Thank you for listening to my story. And if you've ever had to walk away from those who couldn't see your worth, remember this. You are allowed to rise anyway. If this story touched something in you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose yourself? I read every one.